What is going on, investors? Hopefully, you guys had a great week out there. That's right. It is Friday and it is Masters Week. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day out there. Got a lot of things going on today, especially in the stock market with the FANG stocks. They have been ripping and roaring to the upside, and we're going to run down all the news from Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, and Tesla all down the line. And then we'll jump over to the stock charts, and boy, oh boy, get out your binoculars because these ones have been going up, up, and away. So we'll talk about that and maybe potentially what is going to happen heading into next week. So let's kick things off with Facebook. Now, they report earnings in 19 days on April 28th. All these companies are in that range. I'll give you an idea on when they're reporting as we move through this video. Now, Facebook started the week at 301, just continued its uptrend up to 311. We're nearing 52-week high territory on this one. Not a lot of news out of Facebook. Interesting enough, the news that did come out was actually pretty negative. Data of 533 million Facebook users is reportedly leaked online. This is email address, your IDs, your birth date, your location, all kinds of things leaked. But I think people are comfortable with this now. If you put something online, whether it's private or not, chances are it will become public one day, for better or for worse. Now, on to Apple. Started the week at 124, had a great week, just churned higher. 132.54 is about where this one's at. Apple reports on 4/29, a day after Facebook. That is 20 days from now, so less than 3 weeks away, we will get Apple earnings. It's interesting. All these stocks are having great moves. Makes me wonder if they're pulling forward some of these gains that we might have seen on a nice earnings report. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Something that we'll definitely talk about next week as well and the following week. Now, MacBook, iPads, all of this is being postponed. We'll talk a lot today about chip shortage. Man, there's a chip shortage in cars. There's chip shortage for MacBooks and iPads and cell phones and everything. Everybody's feeling that pinch. And from all the research I've done, this should continue through the springtime. And into the summertime is when you might see a little relief on that, at least from the data that I've been seeing. Now, Apple's privacy feature threatening targeted ads will launch in the coming weeks. So iOS 14.5 features the ability for the iOS to kind of block these targeted ads. So if you're on like Nike.com and you're looking at a certain shoe, and then you go on, some other site, and all of a sudden the shoe that you looked at or that was in your cart is all of a sudden appearing on the ad on the side of a different website, not Nike's website. Well, that is a targeted ad, and Apple is going to release features that will make it harder and harder for advertisers to incorporate those types of ads as you surf your way across the web. We'll see what kind of impact this has on companies like Google in particular, I would say, and Facebook as well. Now, Apple's CEO, Tim Cook, discussed his time left at Apple and the epic battle, which is a court fight that they're embattled in right now. And he hinted at an Apple car. He says, quote, "I feel great right now, and the date is not in sight, but 10 more years is a long time. Probably not more than 10 years. So Tim Cook's already kind of putting a 10-year kind of time limit on his leadership at the Apple computer company. Now, he also talked about how autonomy, which is tied mainly to primarily cars, at least in the near future, is a core technology, and Apple likes to integrate hardware, software, and services, and it appears that the car is probably going to appear one way or another. Now, Amazon started the week, another nice, solid uptrend week for Amazon. Started the week at 3,173, ended the week at about 3,366. Amazon reports on 4/29, the same day as Apple. That is 20 days from now. You bet believe that's going to be a busy day for us here on the channel. Amazon union effort fails in Alabama. So it appears that overwhelmingly, actually, that Amazon's workers there in Alabama that had a vote to unionize decided to reject that. And I can give you my opinion on unions, but I'll probably save that for another time. But I think in general, this is probably a positive, not only for Amazon, but probably for the workers as well, because how many unionized workers are multimillionaires? Think about that one. Now, Amazon Prime Day in 2021, it's an event that could happen in June, and that's traditionally when it was held. It was held, kind of in the summertime when there's not a lot of gift giving. There's not a lot of days like Mother's Day, Father's Days, obviously not Christmas or anything like that. And so it was a perfect kind of time to kind of boost. You got to get a little bit of back to school shopping at that time, but it was a way to boost the numbers. Now, Amazon is moving the day up maybe a little bit because Amazon wants its sales on the record during the second quarter, which will face tough comps because, as you recall, last year during the pandemic, things on Amazon just blew up. I mean, good Lord, if you were an Amazon seller, you were busy as heck in the second quarter, third quarter, even the fourth quarter on Amazon. Now, it's cooled off a little bit, so it wouldn't surprise me if Amazon tries to bolster sales heading into the summertime. Now, Amazon's CEO at the current time, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest persons in the world, supports a corporate tax increase that is included in President Joe Biden's infrastructure plan. And so a lot of takes that you can come at this. Okay, first of all, Amazon doesn't pay a lot of corporate tax. And in fact, I think President Joe Biden kind of took a jab at them, either in a press conference or some kind of release, saying that Amazon uses quote unquote federal tax loopholes to avoid paying tax. Imagine the irony in that. Okay, a guy like Joe Biden, who's literally been in Congress for more than half of his life, he's had the ability to write federal tax law, and all of a sudden he's blaming a company like Amazon for avoiding the tax law that he is allowed to write for over half of his life. So a little thick with irony there, I think, Mr. Joe Biden. But the infrastructure plan could be paid for by a corporate tax increase. Jeff Bezos supports it. Why does Jeff Bezos support it? Because chances are the quote tax loopholes that they are talking that Amazon uses to avoid paying taxes, those aren't going to go away. Okay, look, all these major corporations, who do they donate money to? Who do they support? The president, the Democrats. You think they're going to really write laws that are really going to punish these companies? No, they're not going to do that. And also you got things like depreciation, you got investment into your business. That's just a core tax write-off. When you invest in your business like Amazon does, you'll see in 20 days when we look at their earnings reports, look, they reinvest the vast majority of their earnings. They don't retain earnings in a bank account. They don't retain earnings for the balance sheet. They don't retain earnings for dividends. They don't retain earnings for stock buybacks. They don't retain any of their earnings. In fact, they're buying fulfillment centers, buying planes, buying other companies, things of that nature. That is why Amazon tends to pay lower taxes than other companies. And Amazon's Jeff Bezos supports this because his competitors do pay dividends, do retain earnings on the balance sheet, and he knows that a raise in corporate tax rate will hurt his competitors and not necessarily hurt him. So it's all a game that these guys play. Look, I'm a shareholder. Do I really care? Not really. Amazon grows U.S. digital ad market share as Google declines. Google went down a little bit. They're at 28%. Google's at 28%, and I think Facebook's at 25%. Impressively, though, Amazon has grown from basically 0% digital ad market share to 10% in 2020. That was up from 7.8%. This is going to be one of the biggest businesses as Amazon. Are they going to get as big as Google or Facebook? I highly doubt it, but they are going to get a large portion of this business. Now, moving on to Netflix. Solid week for Netflix. We'll talk about that when we get over the chart. $533 started the week, ended the week at about $555. Netflix reports on 420, about 11 days from now. So we'll see what happens on 420, but Netflix will be reporting. Now, big news for Netflix this week is they get a Spider-Man streaming rights with a Sony Picture deals. This includes other movies as well, Jumanji, Bad Boys, some other stuff in the Sony Pictures library. It gives Netflix kind of a, quote, superhero movie, while a lot of that has shifted over to Disney Plus because they've got, control of a fair amount of those types of movies and characters under their brand portfolio. Moving on to Google, started the week at $2,167, ended the week $2,271, and you guessed it, it broke above the upper end of its range. I think that is the most important thing. When we get over the stock chart with Google, boy, oh boy, this stock has been ripping higher. Now, amid rumors, Google officially announced that the Pixel 5a 5G phone will be coming to the United States later this year and Japan as well. So there was rumors that this phone might be canceled or might be put on hold because of the semiconductor shortages, but it appears Google has maybe found a supply chain or thinks that they'll figure out by the time that this phone will be released. Moving on to Microsoft, start of the week at 244. Again, melted up higher to 255. Basically, all-time highs were seen with Microsoft. Quite frankly, on almost no news. There was very little news out of Microsoft this week. Now, Google reports on 4/27. That's about 18 days from now. Microsoft reports on 4/28 along with Facebook. And now Tesla, they will report earnings on 4/28. That is 19 days from now. Now, speaking of Tesla, start of the week at $6.99. Went down, actually. This was like the one stock out of all these that actually went down. We'll talk about that when we get over the stock chart with Tesla. Is it in a range? Are we consolidating sideways? Those are the things we'll talk about. Now, $676 is the price on Tesla about right now. Electric vehicle stocks drop as global chip shortage persists. Talked about this several times on today's show when it comes to MacBooks, whether it comes to Google phones, and now obviously vehicles as well. Tesla is feeling the pinch there, and they're seeing it. I believe. Now, this is not confirmed. It's not clear why the new Model S and Model X deliveries are being delayed, but it's believed that it's possibly due to a chip shortage. If you ordered your new Model S, well, look, you're probably doing pretty good because those cars are pretty expensive. But you were looking at a March and April estimate at first. Now you're looking at May, July. So hopefully you didn't sell your previous car too soon because your Model S or Model X isn't going to come as soon as maybe you thought originally. Now, GM confirms an all-electric Chevy Silverado is in the works. And if you live in like a farm town like I do, holy crap, you see a lot of Silverados. Okay, so this would be, in my opinion, a wildly popular car or pickup truck in this case. I think this thing could be a huge success if GM is able to pull it off and able to run big production numbers on this type of truck. And it has performance and things like that. They say it's estimated to have 400 miles range per charge. Okay, that could get you from where I live down to Los Angeles on a single charge, more than likely. So that would be a very attractive. I think we've been saying this for like 5 years. Okay, the EV market is picking up with competition. These companies are not there yet. Okay, they've got to actually manufacture these trucks and release them, and manufacture and release them in large enough quantities to where me as a consumer, you as a consumer actually has some choice. So if you have $60,000-$70,000, which I would imagine a truck like this would cost, are you going to buy the Chevy? Are you going to buy the Tesla Cybertruck? Or are you going to order a Model S? Or are you going to order something from Lexus, Toyota, whatever it is? It'll be interesting to see as this market continues to pick up. Now, Tesla offers night discounts at superchargers in California. My brother has a Tesla. I've driven with him enough to know that, look, sometimes these supercharger stations are backed up. You have to sit there and wait. I mean, it's like a line at a gas station. You almost never see it. So you get a 50% discount on this from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. I thought that was kind of interesting that you get a little bit of a break there during the afternoon time on your supercharger. Now, speaking of supercharging, Facebook's stock chart has been on an absolute tear. This thing bottomed out a couple weeks ago on 3.8 around 255, and it said, I'm done trading there, and it has just been ripped higher. Okay, we've had a couple pullbacks along the way at areas where we'd actually consider that to be normal, and it's just continued to rip higher. We pushed through all-time highs on this one. We've kind of come back a little bit. Are we are we pulling forward the gains that we would have seen about 2 weeks from now on a good earnings report? I think that's potentially true. I wouldn't necessarily think that if Facebook just blows the numbers out in about 19 days when they report earnings, their stock is just going to continue to rip higher after you've made this type of move. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. We'll see. Can this thing pull back? Yes. If it pulls back, logical spot to stop, 304, which is, I think, the previous all-time high. You break that level. Look at how spaced out these candles are starting to get. When you make this type of move, it's like a rock skipping across water. You just kind of like skip across, and it creates kind of gaps in the price chart. This thing, I think, could easily come back to 293, maybe even 286. Again, this is if the trend reverses. This is if you get a poor earnings report, something like that. I wouldn't necessarily anticipate that. I would anticipate maybe it hovering here, maybe consolidating sideways at some point. Boy, the momentum has been nice in this one. And if you're long these stocks like I am, it's been a pretty good week in terms of performance. Now, moving on to Apple. This one also bottomed out at around almost the same day as Facebook, around 3839, bottomed out at 116, popped up, pulled back a little bit right at 120, and then just ripped. And it got right above kind of a key area or a significant area at 128. Now we're at 130. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me one bit if this thing's got about $10 to $16 more in upside. It's sitting here right at 132. Yes, we've got some price action here, but more logically, I think this one could test 136, 137, 138. I think over the next, it's got 20 days before it reports. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me one bit. Apple actually pushes through. And look, if you wanted this as a trade setup, you want to play this as an options play, I'll let you figure that out. But we're sitting here at 132. I think a logical place to put a stop loss is right in that 128 level. That's only $4 lower, but you've got, again, I think $9 to $10 to maybe even $11 in upside, maybe even more than that, maybe like $14, $15 in upside on this one as we move back up into these ranges. Boy, it could, and if we break 138, then there's not a lot of candles up here. This thing could retest all-time highs like we've seen with Facebook and some of these other stocks as well, Microsoft included. Now, Amazon. I stretched this chart out kind of wide. I wanted to show you we've been sideways consolidating since July of last year. I mean, this is a long time into the summertime. We're approaching almost a year of sideways consolidation between 2,900 up to about we'll call that 3,550 or so, somewhere in that range. So more tighter range is more in this 3,000 to 3,300. We've had like a 10% range in Amazon for darn near 6 to 12, almost 12 months, 10, 12 months now. So this thing is sideways. It is popped up above kind of the upper end of this range. It is now peeking its head up into the $3,400 territory. In my opinion, just like Apple, wouldn't surprise me. This company reports earning in 20 days. Wouldn't surprise me if we retest these highs at 3,550. So if you want to set up a trade in this one, quite frankly, I think you could set a stop right here at 3,300, and you got $69, $60 in downside, and you could play this for $200 in upside. I think, again, that's the shorter term. I'm long term on all these stocks. They would have to pull back a little bit for me to find them to be attractive, but this one looks like, to me, it wants to continue to break higher. Now, Netflix, exact same thing that I showed you with Amazon, is this thing has been consolidating much larger range, in my opinion. You got 469 all the way up to about, well, call that 569 just to make the numbers kind of round. You've had about $100 range on this one. Now, it's been in an uptrend. We're coming up to the area of 560, which is only about $5 more than where the stock is trading right now at about 555. That is when sellers have stepped in with Netflix. They stepped in back here in October. They stepped in here again in January. They stepped again in February, and you could call it here as well in February. The sellers have stepped in here at 560. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Netflix. Can it push above? Because if we can push above 570, look, 590, 600 is certainly in play in this one. It could be that earnings, this one could really have impact on earnings, because Netflix has kind of guided that they have a little bit of softening here in the United States and Canada markets because they just pulled forward a ton of subscriptions. But can they surprise to the upside with the international market? That will be interesting to see. Now, Google, holy moly, this thing has just sideways consolidated, gapped up, sideways consolidated. And we've talked about for literally 2 months now that Google has been between 2014 and 2120 for 2 months now. And then when or if it broke above this, boy, it could run. And that's exactly what it did. It went from 2120. I mean, it ran all the way up here to 2270. It like bolted on another $150. And look, your guess is certainly as good as mine on where this one might stop. Okay, the higher and higher up it goes, the higher and higher up the next consolidation wave will be. In my opinion, you're probably going to have some kind of like a new level of consolidation, because that's kind of what Google's been doing. Okay, and so any pullback back down to what was the top of our range down here at 2120, 2130, somewhere in that range. Look, I think it'd be a buying opportunity for a Google shareholders. Boy, that stock has just been ripping higher. I wish I had more than, I think I only got like 1 or 2 shares of that one. Now, same thing that we're seeing in Google, we're seeing with Facebook. We're also seeing it with Microsoft. That is why I think there's a high probability we'll see it in Apple and Amazon. They're basically a week or 2 behind where these stocks are right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if Apple and Amazon get to this level within the next, I would say, 2 weeks before they report earnings. So Microsoft, boom. I mean, this is a rock skipping across, and it is going at a very high rate of speed. We've gone from just a couple days ago at 232 on this stock all the way up, holy moly, 255, making all-time highs with Microsoft. Again, your guess is as good as mine when this one decides to take a breather. Microsoft is reporting on 4/28, 19 days from now. It could continue to push higher, but I think we could assume the same thing as we did with Google. At some point, sellers are going to step in with Microsoft, and we'll probably see a pullback, in my opinion, somewhere in the range of 245, 246, somewhere back in here, which were our previous all-time highs. A pullback to that spot, especially on solid earnings, something like that, would, in my opinion, create a buying opportunity for Microsoft. Now, finally, our last stock is Tesla. Now, Tesla not performing quite as well as the other stocks, but what I want to show you here is we made a low back here in March. This is March 5th. We made another low here. This is like the end of March, and it appears, in my opinion, we've made another low here in basically today on the 9th of April. This is a low, a higher low, another higher low. This thing is churning higher. Now, it hasn't broken up above where we'd like to see it, right around $700 and some change, up to about 705, 708 on this one. So for Tesla to go higher, you need it to break above 700 on some strong momentum, some strong volume. We have not seen any volume in the market. Market volume has actually been at record lows. We'll talk about this probably on our Saturday show as well. Just seems like everybody's either watching the Masters or they're playing golf, or they're not interested in buying any stocks at the moment. At the same time, there's not a lot of sellers stepping in, and so we're seeing when you have an absence of volume, in my opinion, the strong stocks, as we've seen, like Facebook, Google, and Microsoft, they tend to churn higher because people have automatic investments, those types of things. The sellers dry up, but there's still a certain amount of buyers there, especially when we're talking about blue chip stocks like this. So a push above, really what we're looking with Tesla is a push above 700, and then look, 770 is back in play on this one. Now, if we we've gotten rejected here several times at 700. And if we break this spot here at 600, okay, we're sitting at 676. If we break 600, which would be our kind of our quote higher low, look, I think we're coming back down here to in the mid fives, the 540s, the 550s. That could be in play. I think Tesla's earnings report too, probably carries slightly more weight than the other stocks as well. Could they announce something? Could they announce a partnership with like a Toyota? Could they announce maybe plans for a new car, developments on the semi-truck, developments on the Cybertruck? I think this company has a little bit more levers to pull. We already know the delivery numbers. We already know that they're going to be Model S and Model X, probably going to be a little light, but the Model 3 and the Model Y are performing as expected, maybe even above expectations. So we'll see if they're able to pull some levers, but the $700 level is critical with Tesla. So that wraps it up for this week. These stocks are just churning higher. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll be back again soon. Good luck with your investments.